Hi there, welcome to the Upcycle Design Lab. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials. If this is your first time here, I hope you'll stick around and check out some of my other upcycling tutorials. And if you like what you see, you can check the subscribe button below any of my videos to become a subscriber. Also, if you'd like to be notified when I upload new videos, be sure to check the bell icon as well. So if you've seen some of my other videos, you might know that I recently tore apart an old box springs to see what I could salvage from it. And I have actually made one simple project using the springs themselves. But today I'm going to be using some of the salvaged wood to create what I hope will be a little flower window box. So here are some of the wood pieces that I salvaged from the box springs. And you can see they're not in a perfect shape. They have some nail holes and some other flaws in them, but I think they'll be just fine for my purposes. I do have to confess that I am a little bit afraid of all the saws that we have. I'm trying to slowly learn how to use more power tools, but these have already been cut to length because I am still a little bit afraid of the saws that we have. So I am going to be using the power sander today though, and I've already sanded this board, which it does a really nice job. I've always hated sanding, but this is much faster. With my skill set, I'm still kind of using this sponge for the corners just to knock down the edges on that a little bit, but I do really like this Craftsman. I think it was one of the cheaper ones, but it works really well. You can get it for less than 50 bucks. And so I'm going to carry on with the sanding of these pieces, and then I need to cut the end pieces. One thing I will mention is that this is going to make a very small, kind of shallow, narrow window box, but I didn't want anything too big because I'm actually going to be hanging it on a fence. And I thought about doubling up the pieces, but I think I was just a little nervous that that would make it a little too big and a little too heavy. So the instructions say that this sander works very fast, which is true. I don't know how well you can see this, but I really nicked off the corner of this piece of wood that I was sanding, which is why I opted to go back to the sanding sponge for my corners. But you don't need to put any pressure on the sander, you just need to let it do the work. So it's just got an on-off switch here, the bag catches the sawdust, and like I said, it's pretty easy to use. So a couple more things about the Craftsman sander. The sandpaper is very easy to remove. It's kind of held on with a Velcro type system. And all you need to do is just peel that off and replace the sandpaper with a new piece of sandpaper. You just need to be sure to line up the holes so that your sawdust, as it's being sanded off, can be sucked up into the bag. And to empty the sawdust out of the bag twists off very easily, and then you can just dump out the bag. I don't know how often you're actually supposed to empty it. This one was pretty full by the time I emptied it, so probably better to empty it more frequently than not, but it just snaps right back on. It's very easy to use. So I've got all my pieces cut, and I've done the first round of sanding. So you can just see I've got my two sides, these little short pieces for the end, and the bottom piece. And the next thing I want to do, I've never done this before, but you can make your own wood putty using some sawdust. I just saved it from the bag from the sander, and some wood glue. So I'm going to fill in some holes and let those dry, and then I'll probably need to sand it again. All right, I don't think there's any real recipe here. You just start with some of each until you get a texture that seems kind of putty-like, I think. I don't have a lot of dings that I really want to fix on the box itself, but I'm thinking once I screw it together I might want to fill in those screw holes, so I'm just practicing kind of on a nick in the bottom piece of this wood. It's not really going to show, so I guess it won't matter too much if I mess it up, but hopefully you can see that there's kind of a dent from a hammer, and then there's a nail hole there, another big scratch up here. All right, I probably left myself a lot of sanding to do, but I have a fairly thick layer on there, but I think I've got everything filled in. So I'm going to let that dry and then I'll sand it and see what it looks like. So if you watch some of my other videos, you might know that my projects kind of sometimes take on a life of their own. So I thought I was going to just hook these pieces together, stain it, and hang it up. But of course, that seemed kind of boring to me, so I decided to try my hand at wood burning. There's a special name for it. I'm not sure. I don't know how to say it. So to do that, I found a little quote from Alice in Wonderland. I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan. And I used just my regular ink pad and a stamp set to stamp the wording on here, and then I just kind of free-handed this part of it. I do not know how to do wood burning. I just barely practiced a tiny bit here with some tools that I have. I have a stencil cutter, and I found that you can use the stencil cutter pretty much interchangeably with the wood cutter. It gets really hot, so you want to use all the precautions that they recommend, and you might want to wear a mask while you're doing some of this, just because there are some fumes. But I've been kind of playing around with it, and I think I'm confident enough to just go ahead and try to do this on my actual piece of wood. So my stencil cutter didn't come with too many tips, but I've been playing with a few different ones, and I've just decided on using this pointed tip. It's pretty much the easiest. I may use the other tips at some point for some decorative stuff, but like I said, I'm not a professional at this at all. I do have my heat-resistant gloves on, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the best I can here. You know, we're all about experimenting. You don't have to press very hard. And obviously the longer you leave it there, the deeper of a burn you're going to get. So I don't really have any tips for this because I'm just a total beginner. My only tip is, if you're interested in something, give it a try. So this is going to take me a little bit of time, and once I'm done with it, I'll be back to assemble the box, do some more sanding, and finish it off. All right, I have two things to show you. First is my homemade wood putty experiment, which I'm not very happy with. So hopefully you can see it here. The color isn't great, and I didn't even get everything filled in very well. This is, like I said, the bottom piece, so I don't really care that much. But I think I'm gonna not mix any more wood putty and try to make, cover my screw holes or anything, just because I really didn't like the way that turned out. So the other thing is the wood burning that I did. Hopefully this is all in the frame there, kind of. It was fun. I think my project might look a little 7th grade wood shoppy, but for a first attempt, I think it's okay. I will say that the one video I watched that talked about how to prepare the wood was that she said, just sand it down till it's buttery smooth. And I thought I had my wood pretty smooth, but I could definitely feel these, where the wood grain is, I could feel a bump when I would move along. So I don't have the smoothest, most perfect lines in my art here, but it was fun to do for my first attempt, and I think it made the box a little more interesting. All right, hopefully you can see this whole thing. It's kind of an awkward long piece. I have already attached one of the little end pieces to the bottom of my window, flower box, whatever it's called. And you can see that I am quite a beginner. I've cracked the wood here, but because I'm stubborn, I'm just going to keep going. And so I want to mark my end pieces where I want to drill the holes and put the screws. Now, I don't know how men do it, because I couldn't find a tool that I wanted to use for this, because basically I want this to be the top because it's the cleanest, and this is going to be the outside because it's the nicest piece. So I want to mark 2 holes at the bottom here. So the point is that you want to make, you need to make 2 measurements. So I've decided that I need to have a measurement that is 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge here and 3/4 of an inch in. Now I don't know if there's a woodworking tool that does that, but I have a quilt square, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm just going to, they're clear, so you can just line them up at 3/4 this way and 3/16 this way, and then I'm just going to use my center punch right at the corner here to mark my hole where I want to drill my first hole, and then I'll just do the same thing on the other side with my glasses on this time. All right, I know I said earlier that I was afraid of power tools, but I do think everyone should have a cordless drill. All you ladies out there. Very fun, excuse me, very fun toy. I won't give you any actual tips on how to use it because I don't know that much. I just know how, I know there's some different speeds, some different torque, a couple different settings for whether you're drilling holes or screwing in screws. I am not very good at screwing in screws with this drill. That's why I cracked the end there. So I may do the next set by hand. I don't know. All right, so I'm just going to get a scrap piece of wood here and drill my 2 holes. Oops, that's not in straight. See what I mean? Up, not in straight. That's one tip I can give you. You want to make sure your drill bit's in straight. This is, yes, definitely going around crooked. All right. All right, don't be watching this for woodworking tips. Just be watching it for like motivation that you can try new things. So I've got my 2 holes drilled all the way through, and now I just want to drill another hole just to set the first screw. There's probably a lot better ways to clamp this and hold it, because I'm totally free-forming it here. Bottom piece was a little bit bowed, so I'm using this clamp to kind of hold it in while I put the first screw in. So one thing I do want to mention, when you're putting your box together, you want to think about your placement of your screws. So this should be fine to go in right here. It shouldn't hit this other screw. So you just want to make sure that you're setting your screws far enough apart so that you can keep them all level, if that makes sense, hopefully. Anyway, I have 5 more screws to put in, and then we'll be ready to move on. So I've got my box put together here, and you can see it's a little rough. My screws are not perfect. I've decided not to cover them up because they kind of match the color of my art. And just one other comment that I have about it, I decided not to drill any holes for drainage in this just because it's so shallow, and I think that you know, it's going to leak out the cracks here at the bottom. So if you have a bigger, taller box, you probably want to drill some drainage holes. So I'm ready to do the staining, and I'm going to use a little trick that I learned online to make my own stain color. So you just need the natural color of the stain, it's almost a clear color, and some oil-based paints. You can get these little sets, I think I paid about $10, you can definitely get them for less than 20 bucks, and with that you can kind of mix in pretty much any color you want to of stain. So I'm going to actually stain this sort of a, what I'm hoping will turn out to be sort of a pink or fuchsia color. So I'm going to mix a few colors together, and then I've got some wood here to test out my color on. And I like to, when I'm staining, just use a foam brush. So I've got some stain already in this cup here, and I'm just going to pick out the colors that I think I might want to use. And I just have a plastic fork here to do some stirring. It does take a little while to get all this, the paint mixed in, or the oil-based paint mixed into the stain. But you can see I'm putting a fair amount in. Hopefully you can see there's just globs of paint down here. And I'm just going to stir it up. It's looking pretty pink. All right, so this, I let the stain sit on there for about 5 minutes, and then I just wiped it off with a clean cloth, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stain the box. So I'm ready to put the finishing coat on, and I normally use Minwax polyacrylic because it's just such an easy water-based finish to use, but it's more for indoor use. So I'm trying this for the first time. I like bare products, so I think it should work really well. It's for fencing and decking, and it's a clear finish. So I will let you know what I think of it after I apply it, but I think it's probably a good choice for anything outside. All right, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little scared now because look, I was expecting this to be more clear or cream colored or something, but I don't know, it says clear. So I'm gonna start on the bottom here, but it looks pretty brown. The finish on my box is dry now, and I did, it does dry clear obviously, but it is a tiny hint yellow. So I don't know if you can see that on camera really, but this has gone a little bit more orange than the original pink stain that I had. So it's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't, I'm not really trying to match anything, so it doesn't matter that much to me. But I'm pretty much ready to hang up my box. Now, you might be wondering why in the world I chose a piece of wood that had 2 big knot holes in it, but it was because I liked the way it looked. So I did go ahead and just cut some, hopefully you can see this, little pieces of black plastic. I just used a coffee lid from some coffee. And then I used some E6000 glue and some thumbtacks just to hold those pieces in there so that my holes are closed off, but they still look like knot holes from the front. So now it's time for the fun part. Let's go hang this up. So it was pretty easy to hang up this flower box since we could get on both sides of the fence. If you were trying to hang it under a window, it'd probably be a little bit trickier, but we didn't have to worry about that. So we just drilled 4 holes and used some 1/4-inch bolts to attach the flower box to the fence. And I think that'll be plenty to hold it. I don't think it's going to be too heavy once it has the dirt and flowers in it. So that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you think my box looks a little bit bare, be sure to check back next week for my next project where I'm going to fill out the box a little bit and take the Alice in Wonderland theme even farther. So once again, thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you back here soon in the lab.